Everyone, welcome to the sixth annual Podcast Award nomination slate. My name is Todd Cochrane. Hey, before we get going here, I just want to take just a minute for all of you that may or may not know me. I'll do an introduction first, but I spent the weekend working on a personal issue that I'm hoping maybe some of you can help me out with. I'm out here in Honolulu, and my original family's back in the Michigan area. And over the weekend, I've had three, basically my cousin's kids are missing, and there is an nationwide Amber Alert out. Maybe you've seen it on CNN and Fox News over the past 24 hours. But if you have friends, family members, people that you know that are in the Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio area, we'd love to have you reach out to them and let them know about the Amber Alert for the three missing boys in Lenawee County, Michigan. They are white males, ages 5 to 9, and their names are Tanner, Alexander, and Andrew Skelton. The FBI, state police are looking for any leads possible, and they're desperate for leads. It's not a good situation. It's been 48 hours now, but there is a hotline. I'll give that to you just in case. I thought I would do everything I can to help out my immediate family, but that number is 517-458-7104. So thanks for indulging me and let me put out that personal announcement here during this event. Hey, let me just do a quick introduction here again. My name is Todd Cochrane. I'm the founder of the Podcast Awards. This is the sixth annual, and boy, oh boy, you guys blew me away this year. Your listeners have come out in absolute force, nearly melting the server. Matter of fact, we had to put on extra bandwidth to handle the traffic. But as many of you know, I'm also the CEO of Raw Voice. We are the parent company of Blueberry.com. Blueberry, of course, is one of our corporate sponsors for the 2010 Podcast Awards. If you get a chance, go over and check out Raw Voice's family of websites at Tech Podcast, ProMed, Travelcast Network, and, of course, Blueberry.com. And if you're a podcaster and you don't have your show on there already, I encourage you to do so. If you're looking for world-class podcast hosting, fantastic media statistics. We have over 1,000 shows on advertising buys. And of course, if you are a member of the network over there, you're able to get your show put directly onto the Roku, Boxy, Samsung IPTV, Vudu. We are a distribution platform into those set-top boxes over the top TV. And I encourage you, if you're not doing video with your show already, to consider it. And if you want a good reason why, if you go over to my personal blog at geeknewscentral.com, of course, I'm a podcaster as well, you'll be able to find out what's so hot and what's so happening about OTT. There's a post up there I put up over the weekend that talks about the presentation I made at Blog World and New Media Expo about it's called the triple play, but it's essentially talks a lot about OTT, give you a reason why to consider doing video with your show if you're not currently doing it, and get exposure to a brand new audience that's basically sitting back and watching you via their lazy boy with a remote control in their hand. So have that, basically check that out if you want to. It's over at my personal website at geeknewscentral.com. Hey, give you a little history. The Podcast Awards were really started as a way for me to give back to the community, and that continues to be what it is. It's quite a process every year, and this year I was really thinking about not running the awards this year, specifically because it's so much work. Generally, I have to find up to 44 reviewers to review all the nominations and go through the process, and I'll talk about that actual process here in a second so that those of you that may or may not get nominated tonight will know what we went through to make that determination for this slate that is basically being presented to you today. Very basically, during the review process, what happens is that we verify that the podcast fits into the category. And again, this year, literally dozens of shows nominated themselves in every category. We had gaming shows nominating themselves in the gay and lesbian category. We had them nominating themselves in the movie category. So in future years, I would ask that you instruct your audiences which category to nominate you in. That will help because many of you, probably if your combined focus of your audience would have nominated you in a single category, you would have made the cut. We also verified that the podcast has had at least 8 shows produced upon our timeline that we set out in the rules. We verified that the podcaster is creating a show on or before August 1st, 2010. And we also verified that the podcaster has a visible RSS 2.0 feed with an enclosure. You would be amazed how many people think they're podcasters, but you cannot find an RSS feed on their website. You can't find an iTunes link. You can't find nothing. And yet they say they're a podcaster. You are not a podcaster unless you have your content being distributed into iTunes, Zune Marketplace, and so forth via an RSS feed. So many shows just immediately got tossed because of that process. The way we review the shows is the number of nominations makes up 40% of your point count. Quality of the website design is 15%. Quality of the sound or video is 15%. Quality of podcast delivery and show format is 10%. And relevance of content is 20%. Again, this is all done by listeners. We have a army, 44, basically a small army of listeners that volunteer every year, and they spend as many as 8 hours going through each category. Being that we just closed nominations last Sunday, we asked people to help us out during their Thanksgiving holiday, and we were doing final tabulations as late as about 9 o'clock last night. So and that was Hawaiian Standard Time, so the rest of you were fast asleep, mostly on the East Coast. So let me just talk just a little bit about some of the following. I'm going to get into the actual nominations here in a second, but let's talk about how some shows missed the cut this year and really what you should watch out in years to come. There was many sites that just had simply no way to subscribe to your show. We'd come to your website, we'd look, there was no RSS feed, there was no way to subscribe. You had to come to the website and actually just listen or watch on the website. And that was immediate. Boom, a big markdown in your grading profile. Website designs, we found one website that didn't have a website. All he had was an RSS feed. Quite literally, the RSS feed was his website, and that's what was submitted by a significant number of the podcasters' listeners. So kind of weird that you would not have you'd have an RSS feed, but you wouldn't have a website to go along with it. Invalid feeds continue to be an issue. We didn't really mark anybody down or hit you on that from a scoring standpoint. We continue to find shows that have RSS feeds bigger than 256K in size. And many of you that are doing that, you need to go over to iTunes and make sure your show's still updating, because iTunes will cut you off at a certain point. They're not quite as strict as about 256, but I believe if you get much larger than that, they quit updating your RSS feed. We also found just huge numbers of sites, and we had a little close to 3,000 sites nominated. We found sites with iTunes link only, but people, I guess, don't realize that Zune are making up 13-14% of the actual consumption of content right now today. People didn't have a way for people to get their show added to a BlackBerry or other devices. Everyone continues to think iTunes is the end for all. So if you're a podcaster and you don't give your content creators multiple ways to consume your content, then you need to look at that. Again, I recommend that you review my state of the podcast sphere that I'll put up on Podcast Connect in a couple of days. I'll make the announcement at podcastawards.com. And we'll get into the announcements here. I just want to make a couple of comments before we move on to the next segment. I'm changing things up here on the page, so I'm ready to make a flip here. Okay, we'll bring this up into standby so that you guys can bring that up. Okay. Something I've been watching over the past year for content creators that are running advertisers in their sites, and many podcasters are now basically selling their souls for a cup of coffee. If you're getting product for free and you're writing reviews and you're giving that product away, that's cool. But, that ultimately is not going to pay your phone bill or your house bill or your car payment. So, be careful on what you're giving away based on, if your show's small, maybe that's not such a big issue. But the bigger your show goes, you guys are working hard, creating great content. Get an advertiser in there that'll pay, and quit basically giving your content away and giving access to your audiences for essentially nothing. So just a little pet peeve I've been on lately. But let's go ahead and let's announce the 2010 slate. We will not give any show that did not make the slate any indications on where they fell out. There will be none of that. If you email me, I'll ignore you. So I apologize if you didn't make the slate. It is what it is, and we try to be as open as possible how the process is. But that's one thing that I will not do is we will not reveal where you fell out in the voting or actually in the grading. Again, 2 separate listeners graded each site, and then those scores were combined to build up the list. And so here we go. We're going to go ahead and start with the very first category, and this is going to be Best Video category. Let's go ahead and announce that. For Best Video this year, Amateur Traveler, Average Betty, Chuck versus the Podcast, Dig Nation, NASA Edge, TechPodcast.tv, TED, The Total Rad Show, Twee WTS, Vigil, Con Goer are the winners, or actually not the winners, but those are the nominated shows in the Best Video Podcast category. Let's go ahead and advance to the next category, which is Business. This year for Business, A Virtual Perception, Career Tools, DH Unplugged, GT Virtual Study Group, Money Girl, Planet Money, Rebound, The Disciplined Investor, The Engaging Brand, The Real Story on the Street. Moving to the comedy category. In comedy, we got the Adam Carolla Podcast, Big O and Dukes, Comedy Death Ray, Fun Employment Radio, Jim and Them, Tell 'em Steve Dave, The Absolute Peach, The Jersey Jerk Show, The Mike O'Meara Show, and the Trailer Pod Boys. Moving into the next category in culture and arts, Awakenings, Decoder Ting Theater, Made to Fail, Old Time Daily Westerns, Opera Now, Paretta of Savannah, The Bob Show, The Because Show, The Jazz Session, The Sound of Young America. In education, the Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, Free Domain Radio, Grammar Girl, Inside Home Recording, Radiolab, School Sucks, Stuff You Should Know, The History of Rome, The Public Speaker, Writing Excuses. In the entertainment category, Knights of the Guild, Pop My Culture, Rob Has a Podcast, Sci-Fi Talk, Star Wars Action News, The Complete Guide to Everything, The Fringe Podcast, The Tribe, a Survivor Podcast, The Unofficial One Piece Podcast, and Your Time with Josie. In food and drink, Beer Download, Crimes Against Food, Hopcast, My Life as a Foodie, My New Brew Thursday, Should I Drink That, The Nutrition Diva, The Scotch Cast, The Splendid TV, Wine Library TV. In gaming, 360 Gamercast, 4playerpodcast.com, Arethial Radio, Drunk Tank, Giant Bombcast, Jake and Mike VGS, Pet Food Alpha, Polycast, Talk Radar, The Game Spy Debriefings. In the general category, Demigods Lived, Huntcast, Just Cool Enough, Manic Mummies, Oh Behave, Rotting Flesh Radio, The Joe Rogan Experience, The Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd, The Survival Podcast, Wasted Worlds. GLBT, Bend Over and Take It, Cocktail and Cream Puffs, Edge Radio with Viz and Annie, Feast of Fun, Gay Street Beat, PNS Explosion, Ramble Redhead, Savage Love, Scream Queens, and Transponder. In health and fitness, Ben Greenfield Fitness, Cancer.net Podcast, Get Fit Guy, Health Mind Fit Body, Hooked, House Call Doctor, Nutrition Diva, Quackcast, The Fred Cast, and the Senior Care Podcast. And mature, Am I Bugging You? Erotic Awakenings, Movies About Girls, Polly Weekly, The Dark Side, The Jam Hole, The Married Man Show, Vent Chat, We Hit and Run, WTF with Mark Maroon. Movies and film, Behind the Screen Door, Doug Loves Movies, Film Junk, Film Sack, Film Spotting, Movie BS with Bayer and Snyder, now playing, Sound On Site Radio, The Forecast, and the GR80s. Music, Cadence Revolution, Coverville, Friday Night Dance Party, From the Borough, I Like to Rock Podcast, Insomnia Radio, Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, Pollyanna Cowgirl Records, Seismic Warrior Podcast, and the American Rock Mix. Politics and News, Citizen Radio, Democracy Now!, Electric Politics, Free Talk Live, Legion of News, No Agenda, The Bugle, The Dennis Miller Show, The Young Turks, Wheels of Liberty. Religion and Inspiration, Atheist News Podcast, Beyond the Box, Beyond Worlds, Your Tarot Tribe, Chariots of Iron, Irreligious Apathy, and I destroyed that, didn't I? More Than One Lesson, Outer Symmetry, Reasonable Doubt, The Collision Podcast, The Wigglin' Way. In Science, 60 Second Science, Are We Alone? Astronomy Cast, Brain Science Podcast, Mysterious Universe, Science Friday, Science Weekly, Science Sort of, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, This Week in Science. In Sports, Cat Cave Radio, Essential Tennis, Fast Pitch Softball TV Show, Football Weekly, Golf Smarter, NFL Rants and Raves, Spider and the Henchman, The BS Report, The Fantasy Football Guys, The Solid Verbal. In Technology, Bleeding Edge TV, Computer America, Mike Tech Show, Security Now, Software Engineering Radio, Techzilla, The Android App Show, The iPad Show, This Week in Google, This Week in Tech. All right, moving on to travel. Coaster Radio, Hawaii Vacation Connection, Hometown Tales, Inside the Magic, Mousetalgia, The Faroe Islands Podcast, The Season Pass, WDW News Today, WDW Radio Show, and WDW Today. Okay, moving into the last two categories, of course, is our top categories. And boy, the competition was simply fierce in these last two. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let me just tell you, with over 1,100,000 unique listeners coming in and nominating shows, this is the most nominations we've ever got by a multiplier of 3. Last year, I think we did about 300,000 uniques. So the actual competition from category to category was simply amazing. It's like numbers like we've never seen before. A lot of newcomers to the awards this year, as you've seen. Some shows that I have never even seen before absolutely blew the doors off when it came to their audiences turning out and nominating them. But let's go ahead and let's talk about the top two categories, the top two coveted categories that everyone has been waiting for. And here we go. Here's the last two. We're going to go ahead and make the switch. In Best Produced, Chuck versus the Podcast, Hauntcast, Hogwarts Radio, Inside the Magic, Polycast, Radiolab, Rotten Flesh Radio, School Sucks, Star Wars Action News, and WDW Radio. In People's Choice, this year's slate of nominated shows: Career Tools, Citizen Radio, Cocktails and Cream Puffs, Fantasy Focus Baseball, Feast of Fun, Free Domain Radio, Now Playing, Smart Mouths, Tell 'em Steve Dave, and Yeah Dude. Congratulations to all the shows that were nominated this year, and we wish you luck on the upcoming voting that will start taking place here on December 1st. It's important that you rally your audiences, and I hope those of you that did not make the slate will take the time and tell your audiences to come over and vote for the favorite shows. We're going to have the awards ceremony on December 18th. I'll make the time announcement at the appropriate time, but that's going to be held in conjunction with my annual 24-hour podcast, where I podcast for 24 hours straight and raise money for charity. And if you have an inclination that you'd like to participate in the 24-hour podcast, I hope that you'll drop me a line at geeknews@gmail.com. Let me know what you'd like to talk about, and I'll send you over to the link on the website that'll be able to fill out the application form to apply to basically participate in that show. It's always a great event. We'll always have a huge number of people that turn out. And if nothing else, it's 24 hours of nothing that we talk about: podcasting, new media, social media. You'll get an education and build upon your show's basically quality and how you're going to produce over the next year. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of stuff that you'll take away from there. But I want to give a big thanks to all the sponsors. Again, we are really in need of additional sponsors for this year's podcast awards. At this time, we have not raised enough money yet to pay for the trophies. Last year, the trophies came to $2,700. We're still short on that. I have a minimum of about $4,000 I need to raise each year to cover all the expenses for the accounting firm, the team that actually takes care of the website, hosting costs, and everything else. So if you want to consider being a contributor, feel free to look at the sponsorship form. If you're a podcaster and maybe you didn't make the slate, this may be a great way for you to get some exposure during the actual voting time to some audience members that will be coming and voting. So consider being a sponsor over here. We'd really love to be able to raise enough money this year, once again, to pay for the trophies. So we need a couple more $1,000s to do that, and we hope that you'll jump on board and become a sponsor. Again, my name is Todd Cochrane. I am the founder of the Podcast Award. It's been my pleasure to bring you this announcement. We congratulate everyone again that has made the list, and we look forward to opening up the voting on December 1st. Tell your audiences they can vote every single day. We reset the clock at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So if they come in and vote at 10 p.m. Eastern and they want to vote again at 1 a.m. Eastern, basically the clock resets at midnight. So they have to vote within that 24-hour period. So they can vote every single day. And this is where we find out who really has the most engaged audiences out there. This is what it's all about, finding out engagement, finding out who has the audience to be able to turn out. And believe me, you don't have to be the biggest show. The biggest shows don't always win. And we've learned that year after year. It's because shows have high engaged audience that come out and join us. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. And I'll hang out and I'll look at what's going on in chat here in a second. But thanks, everyone. And I'm going to save the recording at this point so people can review it. And then I'll stay up live for a few minutes to look at the chat session and see if I can answer any questions.